I'm Rich.
And on this podcast, we will be focusing on the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. On this episode, we are diving into Weird War Tales number 58. Can you believe it? But first, our co-host Rich has a little something to say to you.
It's called an Intel report. Sledgehammer 44, a 2-issue mini released by Dark Horse in 2013. Script by Mike Mignola and John Arcudi. Art by Jason Latour. A man in a suit of iron drops from an American airplane onto a French battlefield and unleashes a powerful cosmic force on an army of Nazis, their massive war machine, and their most dangerous agent, the deadly Black Flame. This story takes place in the Hellboy universe. Later in 2013, a continuation 3-issue mini was released called Sledgehammer 44 Lightning War. Sledgehammer is the only one who can lead a rescue mission of a kidnapped American about to spill top secret information on the Flying Wing warplane to the Nazis and the Black Flame. All 5 issues are available in a collected trade paperback now. A sad sidebar is that John Severin had started working on the first mini, but he died before it was completed, so they had to start over with Latour. Damn. We have not seen John Severin on the show. And that, oh, man.
Somebody's got that art he must have done. I don't even care if it's just breakdowns or thumbnails. It must exist somewhere. But man,
yeah.
that's rough.
Yeah, I read that. I'm like, oh. Starting off the show on a sad note with that one. Oof. So anyway, cover detail. Art by Joe Kubert. 35 cents. Weird War Tales is dull green on white. Adolf Hitler stands in a futuristic glass tube glowering down at members of an alien species that are surrounding him. The aliens are brown-skinned, wearing orange caps and green uniforms. They seem scared, and some are pointing at him. A caption block on the lower right reads, "The dictator lives again?" Cover date, December 1977. Date of release, September 6, 1977. Killjoy. Full disclosure, I know I'd never noticed this before I started doing the show, but now I catch it. Sorry, Joe. The Nazi armband goes on the left arm, not the right. A 90-degree change of perspective could have fixed this. CNC. I said before I hate bagging on Kubert. But this isn't his best effort. He captures Hitler's menace perfectly. Don't get me wrong, and the futuristic city is great. But the oversized peepers of the alien populace creates an unintended bug-eye comic effect on the background denizens. Like Joe had to step out unexpectedly and Al Jaffe had to finish up. Completely undercuts the mood he was gunning for.
All right, for me, I'm not so down on the bug-eyed aliens as you are. I'm more down on the lack of drama in the overall scene. It's not very Kubert-ish to me. Like, every element is drawn well on its own. But as a whole, it just seems to me like Hitler is standing there mildly perturbed, like he got stuck in the tube or something, like on his way somewhere, and he's annoyed. And the aliens are just kind of confused to see him there. Like it just sort of looks like an awkward moment more than an exciting comic book cover. I do like the virtually Kirby tech look of the surroundings, which is not something I associate with Kubert. When he does high tech and futuristic stuff, it tends to have like a more classic 50s, 60s sci-fi look to it. And this looks very Kirby tech like for him. So there's that at least. We start out this issue after opening that, Joe Kubert, but not quite too impressive cover. And we're hit right in the face by a kick-ass intro page. And art for this intro page is by Jerry Teleok, which, doesn't hurt either of our feelings. Synopsize the image we're looking at here as follows. Death wears GI garb and rides a flying winged brown horse towards a fleeing American and German soldier. That's an American soldier and a German soldier, not an American German soldier or German American soldier. You get it? Hey, destroyed tanks burn behind them. Swinging his scythe, Death knocks an attacking plane out of the air as 3 more planes swoop in for the attack. Death says, "Welcome, reader, to the bizarre battlefield of the Weird War, where all things are possible and only the uncommon is likely. Here, all men are equal prey for me, Death, the Reaver of Soul. But I am also the teller of tales, and if you dare listen..." No Killjoy. And I'll do the CNC here. It's a Jerry T intro page. I'm not saying he can do no wrong, but he did no wrong here in my opinion. I love the winged steed, which Rich is going to comment on in a bit, but I love the elements that he's going to call out. I won't spoil it too much. He's coming right up and he's looking right at me. And Death's message is supported by the 2 enemy soldiers fleeing before him in the foreground. So you've got dialogue and art working together. It's Jerry T doing chaos and combat and a big old death specter wreaking havoc. I like it, and I'm ready to go.
Some people hate these intro pages, but I have to say they help set the mood. Jerry T's art has a certain quality to it that also helps set the table. Seeing the 2 enemies run in mutual terror is always a good look. As Max said, part of me wants to say the horse's mouth doesn't quite look right, but what do I know? I've never had a massive flying horse with death on its back running right at me before, so maybe that is what it would look like. Death takes the unusual move of taking a direct hand in the carnage here too, which I like. It's not my fave intro panel, but I certainly wouldn't toss it in the trash heap here. Moving on. Death has 100 eyes. 8 pages. Script by Jack Olick. Art by Ruben Yandok. The Colonel was a good soldier who did his duty as he saw it, without prejudice and without pity. But if he had only an ounce of compassion, he might never have had to learn that what the old fakir said was true. Death has 100 eyes. India, when the British Lion ruled and death lurked behind every tree and stone. Somewhere in the Khyber Pass, an order was given and the colonel's ordeal began. Yet, at the start, he wasn't even there. Under sniper fire, Sergeant Ram Singh gallops up to Sergeant Mir Jafar and a 40-man mounted patrol. "Give the order to turn the patrol, Jafar. We have to take the East Trail," Singh cries. "No," Jafar replies. "I've just scouted it. It's alive with rebels. We take the West Trail. Follow me." Singh protests. "But our orders. We were ordered to avoid the West Trail at all costs." But Jafar is the senior sergeant, and Singh obeys. All too soon, the patrol rides into an ambush by Afridi tribesmen. Rifle fire and death rain down from the cliffs. Sergeant Singh is thrown from his horse and knocked unconscious, and when he rouses, he discovers the entire patrol had been wiped out. He staggers to his feet and stumbles back the way he had come, to the sun-baked fort at Jamrud. Perhaps it would have been better if Singh had left his bones to bleach under the pitiless sun, if he had known what was to come. "A traitor? Me? Colonel Sahib, it was Jafar. I warned him. It was he who gave the order to take the West Trail." "Indeed. But Jafar is dead with the others, and you still live? Why? Would you have me believe that Jafar deliberately led his men into a trap and then died with them? No. At best, you disobeyed orders. At worst... But we'll let a court-martial decide that. I think you're lying, and that your sympathies are with the rebels. Until we find out, you're under arrest." Another man, one with a heart, might not have passed judgment so easily, and he testified against Sergeant Singh at the trial in Peshawar. At his quarters, the colonel is annoyed at the southern entrance of Abar Singh, the father of the accused. "You must listen to me. My son is innocent. I am a priest at the temple of Kali, and we know things that other men do not. Only death sees what is in a man's heart when he dies. Death has 100 eyes. Things are not always what they seem. I know. Kali gives us the power to see what others do not. Have you learned so little in India? I've learned not to be taken in by mumbo-jumbo. Bah! Kali, go back to your temple, old man, and pray for your son. There's nothing you or Kali can do. The court has ruled that your son is a traitor and must die as a traitor. You mock me. So be it. Before the night is out, you too will come close to death. And on the day my son dies, you will know that he is innocent. You will know the power of Kali to your sorrow. One day you will be a murderer as you say my son is. But you will commit your murder before many witnesses. So Kali has ordained it, and so it shall be. The colonel orders the old man to leave, and he does. A prediction? A curse? I can say. Later that evening, a wheel on the colonel's carriage breaks, and he's nearly thrown out by the jolt. He is stunned to see that if he had done so, he would have been impaled on a rack of blades. An accident? Perhaps. The colonel did wonder about Abbar Singh's prophecy, but not so much he sought to delay Sergeant Singh's death by firing squad. He wasn't there that day either. He was far away leading a mounted patrol against the Afridis. The bugler sounded the charge, and the two forces rode towards the other. The colonel is thrown from his horse as the two sides collide. Lying dazed on the ground, he is amazed to see Jafar tower over him wearing Afridi garb, ready to plunge a sword into him. One of the colonel's men fires a pistol and kills Jafar. The British officer crawls over to the body in shocked horror. It is Jafar! Dear God, he didn't die! Ram Singh told the truth. I sent an innocent man in front of a firing squad. His father was right. A cold fist closed around the colonel's heart, and after returning from the patrol, he went to see Abbar Singh at the temple of Kali. What can I say? Your son was innocent. I'd give anything to bring him back, but I can't. I know I don't have the right to ask, but help me. You said I was going to murder someone in front of witnesses. Who am I going to murder? So now the brave colonel believes, eh? But why is it so important? What is one more life to a man such as you? I am not a murderer. Your son's death was a mistake. If I knew who I was to murder, then you might avoid that man? No. No man can change what is to be. I can tell you nothing. What is written is written. Goodbye, Colonel. The old man went to pray, and the colonel returned to his quarters. All night long he brooded and drank. And a man who broods too long alone inevitably comes to a moment of desperation. He storms back to the temple just before dawn and demands that Abbar Singh give him an answer. Tell me, I'm asking you for the last time, who is the man I'm going to kill? Tell me, curse you, before I wring your scrawny neck. Perhaps if the colonel had had less to drink, or if Abbar Singh had struggled or pleaded, it would not have happened. Instead, the priest closed his eyes and died. As the first light of day entered the temple, the colonel could only sob. Dead! He's dead! I killed him! He's suddenly aware of dozens of shadowy forms surrounding him. No, it isn't possible. He said I'd kill in front of many witnesses. He must have been there all the time watching me. Little remained of the colonel's sanity by then. As he turned to run, his way was blocked by a crowd of arriving Kali priests. Look! Abbar Singh! The Englishman killed him! No, it was an accident! I won't face a murder trial! I won't be disgraced! The colonel pulls his sidearm and shoots himself in the heart. The priests crowd around as he dies. Witnesses, he whispers. He said I'd kill in front of witnesses. But how could he have known? The priests are puzzled. Witnesses? There were no witnesses. But things are not always what they seem as the priests put together the puzzle. He must have killed Abbar Singh just before the sun rose, and when the sun rose and light entered the temple, he saw himself in the mirrors that we have hung everywhere to reflect the glory of Kali. No Killjoy, CNC. I have to wonder if the concept artist at Disney read this comic as a kid and remembered it when he was designing Jafar for Aladdin. There is some real good resemblance there. An overall solid story from the crew. Oleg creates a great spin on the doubting Thomas becomes a believer yarn, and I get a bit of a Jess Jolman vibe on this one from Rubity. from our outstanding deathly intro narrator on page 1, panel 1 on. A lot of great detail work on the uniforms and equipment, like page 2, panel 1, of Sergeant Singh taking his tumble off the horse. I like the collision of forces scene on page 5, panel 1, and the glowing, judgmental eyes of the statue on page 7, panel 3, which looks more like Buddha than Kali. Check the album. But the story hits a bit of a bump on the last panel of the page, where all the shadowy forms have witnessed the Colonel's crime. You find out in the last panel of the story that the shadows have actually been his reflection in mirrors, but the angle is all wrong. In the cool, shadowy panel, they appear to be gazing down on him. I thought they were statues before the big reveal, and I still think statues would have worked better here. The British and India story was overdue in these pages, and it comes after a redeployment issue with the story of the British in Africa. Damn colonizers. Good start to the book.
Yeah, I agree. For the most part, I know you said there was no Killjoy, but hey, here comes some Kali Killjoy. Kali is the feminine version of the Sanskrit word Kala, which has meanings related to time, doomsday, and death. She is a female deity, therefore, seen as both good and evil, and is mentioned in relation to destruction and creation, both requiring each other to happen, you know? She is traditionally portrayed as a jet black or blue skinned woman with anywhere between 4 and 10 arms, many of them holding various weapons. She tends to be shown with blood-covered lips, a wild look on her face, and she wears such accessories as a necklace or garland made of skulls or severed heads. She is not in any way ever portrayed as the great big male Buddha statue that we are shown in the pages of this story. So, with that out of the way, I'll get down to my actual CNC on the rest of the story. As Rich mentioned, the host logo column running down the left side of page 1 is awesome. It makes me pretty happy, even if it colluded with, in my opinion, the writing gaffe of focusing on the Colonel, a character who does not appear until 7 pages into the story. So you're reading and it's like the Colonel, bloobity bloobity blue, and these first characters you meet, either one of them is the Colonel. I wonder who the Colonel is. And then when you finally find out who the Colonel is, you're like, oh, that's the guy they were talking about. It's too much. That's, I know these things are written on a deadline, and Jack Olek has written like, I don't know, what, 70% of this series at this point. So I get it, but it still kind of gave me a little bit of a whiplash there. Combine that with the somewhat clumsily executed Jafar Ram Singh switching places or whatever shenanigans, and this story got off to a pretty awkward start for me. Page 4 redeems things by featuring 7 panels with tons of text without ever feeling cramped. And then at the bottom of that page, the transition between that 7th panel and the first panel on page 5 is done really well. Page 6, however, is nearly crushed beneath the weight of all those word balloons and captions. You can't win them all. However, on page 8, as Rich mentioned there, we get a fully visible on-panel suicide. No silhouette work or off-panel implications here. Just a dude is on panel shooting himself in the chest, fully colored and all. You don't get that a lot in comics. I know the comics code was loosening up a bit by 77, but it wasn't loosening up that much. I think someone just didn't catch that when they were looking at it. But it makes the story stand out to me. I'm like, damn, it is straight up shoots himself in the chest, right? Fully in view. Huh. So that added a little spice to the story. And yeah, Rich called it out in great detail. The ending only kind of works, as the whole mirror trick thing doesn't really match up with the art. And speaking of the art, yeah, Ruben Yandok's art is amazing throughout, except when it's being practically crushed by Chris Claremontian word balloons and captions on one page. And again, I know writing an 8-page story is tough. I've tried to do it myself, and you got to make a lot of sacrifices. And Jack was writing a lot of these things, but still. But Ruben Yandok's art was amazing. Not a bad story, an okay start to the issue overall, in my opinion. So, Mr. Opinionated, you say, how about you take us to the second story in the issue. And I say, okay, fine. The second story is called Death of a Dictator. It's 6 pages long, so, you don't have to deal with me for too long, maybe. Script is by, as I mentioned, Jack Olek again, so he can just tell me to shut up anytime. The guy's working real hard here. Pencils are by Ernie Chan. Inks by show favorite Bill Drought. Synopsis: The Death of a Dictator goes like this. It's the cover story. April 30th, 1945. Deep in Hitler's bunker in Berlin, a man with long black hair and wearing tattered rags and sandals is dragged before the insane Fuhrer by 2 guards. No, please, the man cries. You don't understand. I'm not what I seem. I beg you, if you'll just let me explain. Hitler ignores the plea. Assassin, you sneaked down here to kill me. No one can destroy Adolf Hitler. My mission is to make Germany master of the world, and I will. If not this time, then next time. Hitler shoots the man with his Luger. What did one more life matter to a man who had slaughtered millions? Swine! No one will ever defeat me. The world thinks me beaten, but I will never be beaten. I have plans. A bodyguard desperately interrupts the rant. Mein Führer, we must hurry. The chamber is waiting. Yes, you're right. I must not forget my destiny. Come! The dying man laughs as Hitler leaves the room. Your destiny? Overhead, vengeful Soviet troops fight their way through the ruins of Berlin. But the Fuhrer didn't care about the victims his madness had brought upon mankind. He meets with his new bride, Eva Braun. Adolf, please, she cries. There must be some other way. Must we die? Yes, there is no other way. These are cyanide capsules. We will feel no pain. Would you have me captured, humbled? Take one. Bite into it. It will be over in seconds. We shall die together for the glory of the Third Reich. Tearfully, Eva obeys, but then is stunned to realize that good old Hitler hadn't taken his capsule and has betrayed her. You know too much about my plans, so this way is best. You should be honored to die for your Führer. Cowardice, murder, betrayal, these were the marks of the man who deluded the people of Germany, adored as their leader. But even the vilest of men can have the cunning of an animal. He follows his bodyguard behind a secret door and down a dark passage until he reaches a room where 2 scientists await. All is ready, mein Führer, one exclaims. You have only to enter the chamber, and when you wake, you will be 1100 years in the future. So you have told me, but first your calculations. Have you rechecked them as I have ordered? There can be no error. We were right. Our calculations prove beyond any doubt that all things repeat themselves. And our research shows that in 1100 years, history will repeat itself exactly. You have nothing to fear. There has been no error. Exactly 1100 years from the moment when we put you to sleep, this needle will inject an antidote into your arm. And next time I won't fail. I will know my mistakes and how to avoid them. Next time, the world will really feel my fist. A madman's plan? Of course. But the madman's scientists were brilliant men who had worked long and hard. Hitler enters the chamber and goes to sleep as it fills with gas. His bodyguard salutes his Führer, then pulls his Luger and kills the 2 scientists. It had been his final order. No one must know of the existence of the room. The agony the madman had inflicted upon the world soon came to an end. Years pass, decades, centuries, on and on. He sleeps until, as programmed, 1100 years pass and the antidote is released. The skeletons of the murdered scientists are the first thing he sees as he exits the chamber. Hitler's hair had grown long and his ancient uniform was in shreds. But he heard the bombs and fighting outside and knew that everything had repeated itself. He threw his arms skyward in triumph. This time the end will be different. This time the Reich will win. And when it does, the world will know what it means to have a master. He eagerly runs back along the path he had come down so long ago. I'll have my triumph, my revenge. But as soon as he steps out from the secret door, he is seized by two guards wearing futuristic uniforms. Take your filthy hands off of me, he demands. I am the Führer. I will have you shot for this. The guards drag him to a different room where the leader from this era awaited, and Hitler is shocked. No, it isn't possible. Who is that man? The leader asks. A spy, sir. He must be. He got in by way of a secret door, and we didn't know was there. A secret? So, you've discovered my plans, but you won't ever tell anyone, whoever you are. No, don't. You don't understand. I'm not what I seem. Liar. You came here to kill me, to destroy me. But no one can destroy me. No one. The leader pulls his sidearm and shoots Hitler. Die, you fool, die. And as you die, take this thought with you. The world thinks me beaten, but I don't intend to die. Centuries from now, I'll be back. General, a guard interrupts. We have no time to waste. We must hurry. Yes. Chamber will be waiting. You're right. I must not forget my destiny. A dying Hitler laughs as he croaks out the words. Your destiny, your... The scientist had been right. All things do repeat. And as the Adolf Hitler of 3045 heads to his chamber, the Hitler of 1945 realizes that the price he must pay for his crimes is to die, and to die, and to die.
There's a lot going on page 2, panel 4. It's April 30, but the Soviet troops are running around wearing parkas and fur caps. One of them is waving a flag. I don't know what flag. It's not the Soviet flag, I can tell you that. The aircraft overhead appear to be Petlikov PE-2 twin-engine bombers, which is a great touch. But based on the portrayed action, it also looks like they're dropping their payloads on their own guys. Friendly fire ain't.
Comments and commendations, as I said, carrying on here. We start off with a great host illustration and a super lazy logo. Still, it gets the first page off to a fun start. On page 1, panel 1, Hitler claims that the assassins sneaked down there to kill him. That rubbed me the wrong way, but when I looked into it, sneaked is the technically correct term, as snuck is the newer 1800s or so, but hey, non-standard past tense version. So, shows what I know. I only majored in English, but it's still just, no one says sneaked anymore. Like, I think that's gone, but okay. I like the effect that Drought's inks have on Chan's pencils throughout this story, too. It's sort of firming up Chan's lines and smoothing them out at the same time. And if you weren't completely convinced yet by history that Hitler was kind of a stinker, you watch him pull the I will totally jump in the potentially freezing cold lake water at the same time as you gag on Eva Braun, but with a cyanide pill in panel 2 of page 3. And I know this is a silly little short story in a comic book, but I take issue with the scientist's conclusions here. If history will repeat exactly every 1100 years, then you can't change anything, can you? I know. If they realize that, then we don't get a comic book story about a string of frozen Hitlers killing each other over and over again. And wouldn't that make the world a less interesting place? I mean, there's also the issue with all of these Hitlers speaking the same language 1100 years apart. But okay, fine. I will shut up now. I did a little time travel myself and chuckled at the scene depicted in page 6 of panel 4, which reminded me of Fry from Futurama biting away the centuries in his own cryogenic tube. So That got a chuckle out of me, even though it couldn't have been intended, or could it have? Even with all the loopholes and whatnot, this was a fun, well-drawn tale, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny I didn't catch that whole language thing when I was writing the script and everything else, but I was like halfway through your reading of the synopsis, and that synapse did fire. I'm like, wow, it's a good thing German is still being spoken after all these years, and these guys can understand each other. Wow, okay then. Rip Van Hitler? Oleg does a great job capturing the raving lunatic Hitler had turned into by this stage of the war. Zzz. Hitler and Eva Braun were only married 1 day before they committed suicide together in the bunker. And what's interesting is she's never named or identified as his wife here. For all you know, she could be his secretary. Page 3, panel 2 portrays the betrayal. He never even apologizes, for God's sake. As Max said, one massive loophole in this tale. If Hitler planned to avoid his mistakes by time travel, maybe he should have gone back like 1,088 years instead of 1,100. That way he comes back at the beginning of his rule, not the bitter, bloody end. Looks like the scientists forgot to carry the 1 in the calculations. What the hell was an 1,156-year-old man going to do to change the tide of that war? History repeats, obviously, and will apparently repeat again in 4145. You can do your own history minute for the year 845 AD. That one minor tripping point aside, this is a pretty good story. We have a misdirected word balloon on page 6, panel 3 that confuses things a bit. The wrong Hitler is speaking. I also like the representation of future Hitler and his backward swastika on the last story panel. No Killjoy for that this time. Karma is a bitch, plus or minus 1,100 years. He only lived about 15 to 20 minutes after he should have died in 1945. Too bad some errant shell during World War I didn't take him out then, or one of the several assassination attempts after he became the leader of Germany that we've discussed in the past. So anyway, carrying on, my wayward son. It won't be peace when we are done. Last story in the book, Encounter. 2 pages. Script by first-timer Wyatt Guan. I'll get back to that. Art by Fred Carrillo. The Civil War. When the full moon disappears behind some clouds, a Union soldier on patrol gets lost in a swamp. Stepping on a branch brings a call from the darkness. Psst! Hey, Jackson, is that you? Jackson replies, yeah, is that John? Well, it ain't Robert E. Lee. Using the sound of their voices, they fumble towards each other. Where's the rest of the patrol? Don't know. Reckon we're lost. Can't even see you. What's wrong? You hurt? Meanie ball in the leg. Well, sit down here and let me dig it out for you. You got any whiskey? Yeah, my canteen. Well, have a slug and pass it to me. Jackson digs the round out of John's leg as gently as he can. Whew, John groans. Give me that whiskey. You okay? Yeah, thanks. That's a mercy. I swear when we went wading into them Yanks this morning, I never thought. Yanks! Jackson exclaims. Mean you're not? Holy got 'em! Both men exclaim as they fumble for their rifles. 2 shots blaze in the darkness, and soon the clouds part for the full moon to reveal 2 dead men, 1 Union, 1 Confederate, lying on the swampy ground. Killjoy! Guess it's a good thing both these guys happen to be named Jackson and John, eh? I don't care if they're common names. That stretches the boundaries of believability a bit. Both these guys wearing white pants in the last panel doesn't do a lot for me either. Going on to the CNC, Greg Comics database says Martin Pasco wrote the script, though it clearly says Wyatt Guan in the book. Guan wasn't listed on Pasco's wiki page as a pseudonym, but in the notes in GCD for Weird War Tales 120, Paul Levitz on his Facebook page said that Wyatt Guan is synonymous for a future Hugo nominee, but is not identified, whatever that means. Whatever. Once I made a comment about the mystery to GCD, Guan appeared as a pseudonym there. So I added it to his wiki page, because I do these things. Prior to this story, I hadn't heard of either one, which is stunningly ironic because this is another one of those stories I remembered from when I read it the first time. I'd even started thinking about it recently, not even having the hint of a clue of what the story was called or what book it was in. This is that quick yet timeless tale of my enemy is my friend as long as I don't know he's my enemy. Corella does a decent enough job with a story that takes place at night, in Inker's dream. But because of that, it's hard for me to find an art call out too. Page 2, panel 3 of the two men chatting right before the reveal gets the win for me.
Yeah, I know this whole story is pretty much a bunch of silhouette work, which I normally give bonus points to, but there was just no real impact or effort here story-wise, in my opinion. These two soldiers help each other until they figure out they're on opposing sides. I mean, yeah, that's what war is all about, huh? This little two-pager, though, is but a pale shadow of the classic "the moon is the murderer" from issues past. They could have just left this one out. Maybe the other 2 pages could have been given to flesh out the Hitler story a little more. I don't know. But that's it for the story content, people. And what do we do after that? Well, we mosey on over to read some letters out of the APO Weird War Tales mailbox. My chosen letter to spotlight here starts off like this. Dear Paul, the concept of Weird War Tales is, without doubt, one of the finer ideas to come out of DC in the past decade or so. Since war is such a horrible subject to begin with, it seems only natural to add a supernatural slant to stories on the subject. Instead of showing the cliched man against man, WWT brings us something far more exciting. Man against death. Yep. Like I say, the concept of WWT is great, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Oh, the stories are certainly readable. And for the most part, the art is above average, but the writers and editors don't seem to go far enough with the idea of weird war tales. For example, The Abominable Weapon, WWT number 55, could have easily appeared in either House of Mystery or House of Secrets by merely changing the colonel to, say, a circus owner and the American flyers to his business rivals. Just because the characters wear military uniforms should not be enough of a reason for putting the story in WWT. An example of a good WWT tale is Deadly Dominoes, which appeared several issues back, in number 53, I believe. The situation was certainly weird and something that could only have fit into Weird War Tales. Yet, writer Jack Harris did not have to use monsters or ghosts to make it work. Were there more stories of this sort, Weird War Tales would be a much better book. So, don't rely so heavily on the supernatural in the future, because you've already proved that Weird War Tales can be weird enough without it. And when you do stories of the supernatural, please try to use it in situations particular to war. This came from Barbara Campbell, 2008, Cambridge Drive, Lexington, Kentucky. And the reason I picked this one out, there's a big editorial that I was going to read in this issue, but I chose not to for my ad from Jeanette Kahn about the mystery titles out there that DC's trying to get attention to. And she's pretty much begging the readers to give all the other mystery titles a chance. And here we have Barb Campbell saying that Abominable Weapon could have gone into House of Mystery or House of Secrets. And it's like, well, okay, fine, sure. But, you're reading those books too, right? And I felt like Barb's point drifted a bit. Like, she's like, hey, here you get to use the supernatural. And then by the end of the letter, she's like, stop using the supernatural so much, okay? So that letter just stood out to me more than the other one did. Because there's only 3 here, and Rich picks one. I gotta pick another one. But I liked seeing the fact that people are deciding which stories go into which mystery books. And maybe, even though I enjoyed them all, maybe DC did have a few too many of them on the market because their subject matter is all kind of pretty similar when you get right down to it. So anyway, that was my spotlighted ad. I was disappointed. Not spotlighted ad. That was my chosen letter. I was a little disappointed to see the lack of editorial responses to 2 out of the 3 letters here, but I believe Rich's letter has one.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about that because, for months and years, it's been Dear Joe, Dear Joe, Dear Joe, Dear Joe, and all of a sudden it's Dear Paul. I'm like, did we miss the change off? So, okay, so for the first time, well, technically second, because Max went first, I got a letter from Michael Newman, no address given. Dear Paul, well, yet another issue of Weird War Tales has come and gone, and I'm happy to report it was another in a series of really fine comic books. WW2 has been consistently entertaining, thrilling, and on occasion downright scary. And while 6 weeks is a long time, Weird War Tales number 55 was well worth the wait. I, for one, am in favor of the one-page intros in WWT. Besides setting the mood for the book, they're usually well written and drawn. This issue was no different, as Mr. Tongol did his usual bang-up job on the art, and whoever wrote the page also deserves a hand. The abominable weapon was a nice twist on the old Yeti legend. Yeti here actually spelled correctly. Using the snowman as a weapon of war was a truly novel, not to mention weird, concept, and I enjoyed it tremendously. It's stories like this one that has brought Arnold Drake to where he is today, DC's finest horror scripter. Bill Trout, of course, can do no wrong as far as I am concerned, agreed, which is why I buy practically anything his work appears in. A Rebel Shall Rise from the Grave was, wow, George Cashdan and Alex Nino in one story together. Nino is far more than an artist. He is a draftsman, agreed. Every page is perfectly composed, and every element on those pages are executed in fine detail that boggle the mind. When you take artistic perfection and add it to literary excellence, Mr. Cashdan, you get something very similar to this story. In fact, you do get this story, for which I shall be eternally grateful. Whew, allow me a moment to compose myself. Okay, before I bid you to continue printing such fantastic stories and Weird War Tales and say so long, I have but one question to ask. What happened to the Day After Doomsday series? And Paul responds with, we haven't forgotten about Day After Doomsday, Michael, but space has not permitted us to run the feature for the past few issues. As soon as we find the room, though, you can be sure TDAD will return. So yeah, that was a pretty good letter. Me and Max talked a lot about this. Was, Nino ran a freaking clinic in, that Rebel Shall Rise from the Grave story. So good stuff. So we're going to keep on flapping my gums and go on to our favorite ads. And yeah, this one, this one was just perfect. The more I looked at it, the more I just had to do this one. Crossman Indoor BB Gun by Coleman. Indoor BB gun fun. It's a whole new game. Crossman BB and pellet guns and safe shooter games. You don't need a big backyard for BB gun fun. Crossman's bringing the fun indoors with the finest air guns and exciting target games. There's Crossman's Model 73 Saddle Pal. Uses CO2 gas cartridges to shoot BBs or pellets. Lots of power for easy shooting. Then there's great shooting action with Crossman's Model 760 Pump Rifle, the world's most popular, best shooting BB and pellet gun. Change your basement or family room into a fun center with the new Crossman Safe Shooter games. Illustrated below are some examples. Details on how to get them all and how to set them safely in our Safe Shooters book. With Crossman, you've got year-round fun. Now, the top third of the ad is a drawn image of Johnny aiming his weapon at a hanging target, which is in front of what I would call a catch-all box to stop all the flying BBs. Dad and Susie are right behind him, and Mom is sitting on an orange Naugahyde 70s couch with a pink throw pillow, nervously looking on. Love the wood paneling and the potted plant, too. Johnny's aim is way off. He'll hit paper, but not the actual target. Under that is a drawing of Model 73, and the bottom half is a coupon that can be cut out to receive the Safe Shooters book. Now, I know this is obviously the 1970s, and laser tag type guns, or hell, even Nerf guns, are still a distance off, but I have a hard time thinking this would take off today. Liability and all. Lots of power and easy shooting, for those days when the safe shooter thing ain't working out and you put a round in the TV cathode ray tube, or the picture window, or the aquarium, or Fluffy. I'm a little surprised I had to come back to this one. I should have just stomped on the brakes as soon as I saw this one.
Dude, that thing was easily the king ad in the book. I mean, I poured over that drawing. I saw in the script you had already picked it, and I'm like, fair enough. But when you said in your write-up that mom is looking on nervously, look at that drawing. It was altered. I'm certain of it. She's obviously holding a drink that they erased. So it's like it's the 70s. Mom is having a martini and a Quaalude while her family, her beloved family, shoots up her recreation room down in the basement. That hand is I'm holding a drink. And they obviously took that out, man.
Or maybe a cigarette.
But it's like it's got that one finger up, like, and the thumb out, like she's holding the top of a martini glass. To me, everyone can weigh in, but I'm pretty sure they went, no. I see what you tried to sneak in there. So anyway, that, like I said, was easily the actual winner, legit ad. I like I said, I was going to read Jeanette Kahn's editorial in there, but instead I accidentally stumbled onto something that we can refer to another website filled with really cool people that had something to say about it too. This is a full page ad for something called the DC Superstars Society. And you could be forgiven for not even noticing that, because it's a full page image of what looks like an office memo on DC Comics stationery, like across the top of the page that's kind of cockeyed, and the full page ad here. It says DC Comics Inc. 75 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, 10019. And the awesome DC Bullet, best logo they ever had, right under that. And then there's a bunch of really small typewriter set text. And it says, important notice, applications are now being taken for the following chapters of the DC Superstars Society. And there's a list of 12 options, going from Batman to Wonder Woman. And it says, send a long, stamped, self-addressed envelope with your name, address, and the chapter you prefer to DC Superstars Society. You will receive a detailed application form explaining the DC Superstars Society, the items in your chapter's membership package, and your special chapter questionnaire, testing your knowledge of your favorite DC superstars. Each chapter is different, so select your favorite. Please allow up to 8 weeks for response. Now, I looked at this ad and I was really confused. Like, what is this even for? Why is it so boring to look at? No kid is going to stop and go, oh, someone's put something on office stationery and used a typewriter, and there's no drawings at all, and I'm going to stop and read this whole thing. No, they're not. And even I read it, and I'm like, what is this for? So I went to the internets, and I typed in DC Superstars Society ad, and I found, boom, a hit right up top to the Legion of Super Bloggers website, which again, like I said, hinted at. This is a blog run by a lot of great people, a lot of whom are members of or have been guests on the Fire and Water Network's podcast. You know, Siskoid is there, a lot of cool people. And it's a blog I was reading for a long time before I even considered getting into podcasting, because it's all about the Legion of Superheroes, right? And it's one of the best resources if you're a fan of that comic book that you're ever going to find out there. And I put a link to their entry on this bewildering ad, because one of the chapters you can pick, number 9, is the Legion of Superheroes. So of course they had to say something about it. And they talked about the bewildering nature of this ad, how unattractive it is, how you're likely to page right past it. But of course, whoever wrote that particular entry did order the stuff back in the day, and they ordered from a bunch of different chapters, because they were like, oh, each one's different. Turns out they're really not, other than like one item, like a card that says what chapter you're a member of. You get all the same crap. So that was a lie. Technically, it's different because you have a different membership card with a different name of a character or team printed on it. You do get a really cool fold-out poster that if you go to that link, again, I want you all to go to that website because it's super cool. And, you know, I solved the mystery by going to them. So this poster you'll recognize, it's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez art, so it's awesome. And it does feature a few Legion of Superheroes members, like in the upper left corner. And they used that poster a few times, as they often did with Garcia Lopez's art, for different ads, different pieces of merchandise, stuff like that. So at least you got that. It was like one of the first ways you could end up owning that poster in your home. This one just stood out to me as like, that's the most low effort ad I think I've ever seen. As far as a house ad goes from DC, there's certainly been lower effort ads by other people, like be taller or whatever. Like, even though that ad is a lot funnier than this one, but this is a house ad and it looks like just eh. And why would anyone have ever, but someone did order all this stuff. And if you go to the link that we will put up for you on the Facebook page, you'll see the actual stuff you got in the mail from this thing. But yeah, just a very strange artifact of DC Comics house addery in here, which I was glad for, that there was so much to it and there was so much out there, other people scratching their heads about it. Because as I mentioned, Rich took easily the winner here for the ads. Like, just the slice of 70s life for you right there. Just it's like priceless. So anyway,
it's like I said, the more I looked at it, the more I saw it too. I mean, like, the wooden paneling, the Naugahyde couch, and there's the other thing, like, you surprised me a little bit with your selection, because remember the Hostess Twinkie or fruit pies or whatever it was ad with Pigeon Person with Batman and Robin. This one has the Penguin and the cuckoos, they're flying cuckoo clocks and they're running around stealing money and stuff like that. And the cops defeat them with, the Hostess fruit pies and everything. But there's so much similarity with this ad and the whole Pigeon Person thing. I could have called the shots like, oh, he's going to pick that ad. And you didn't. You let me down.
Well, that's partially why. Like, of course, I love those ads and I loved reading that one that you're talking about. But I was like, man, I really hammered people over the head and really went at them with Pigeon Person. And I'm like, I don't know if they can take it another time. I didn't want to just like repeat myself that hard, because I would have been really merciless with it too. So I was like, you know what? The more I looked at this really drab ad, the more it like kind of made me upset. Like, I was pissed. Like, what the heck is this thing? And then I look into it and I find out I'm not the only person who was like, what the heck is this? So I was like, okay, I'll go with that one, because yeah, me hitting you with another fully narrated by me Hostess ad with a lot of bird stuff in it, I was like, I don't want to push my luck only so hard. So you were right. That was absolutely gonna be my ad until I went down this rabbit hole. And then, again, the Jeanette Kahn editorial was really tempting to me too, because she's such an important figure for DC Comics history. And, her doing basically a plea for people to support the mystery books. And, personally, the boss stepping down to say, hey, read some of these other books we got out there. That was a big temptation for me too. But, maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll just, maybe in the next issue, they'll have the same Hostess ad and I'll be like, screw it, I'm doing it. We'll see. Rich is checking right now. And if
it is. I have issue 59 right here. It totally is.
Because, yeah, a lot of the ads in this issue were repeated from the previous issue, so I had a feeling. So who knows, people? You better hope there's something else more tempting than a delicious Hostess fruit pie in that issue, or you will be spared no longer. So, okay, after all those words, I gotta say, it's time for us to move on to a section of the show we like to call Got Any Last Words?
It's very hard for me to justify making a 2-page story my favorite in the book, unless everything else really sucked. The way back when machine tugged at the old heartstrings over Encounter, but I just can't do it. Death of a Dictator made me think of it, and even with the plot hole, I couldn't deduct too much from the overall experience. Good book all the way around. Keeper.
Yeah, even though the art in the first story is really cool, I also got to hand the crown to story number 2 here. Hitler, stop killing yourself. Stop killing yourself, Hitler. So there we go, people. That is a wrap on the issue. This is where I remind you, we got an awesome Facebook page, Weird Warriors Podcast. Funny. It's named right after the show. On Facebook, Rich runs it. It is awesome. It is super active. Lots of cool people there. Lots of stuff to talk about. Not just the comic, but a lot of other stuff on there, because Rich cares about you. All right. And if you want to show you care about him, you go to redbubble.com and you search the Weird Warriors Podcast. There's that name again, huh? Funny. And you can get our awesome logo, which was designed and drawn by Bill Walko. That's Walko. Look him up, people. He did the Hero Business online comic book strip, which is amazingly cool. And you can put that excellent logo on all kinds of pieces of merchandise over there on redbubble.com. And if you get it, you get that merch, you take a picture of it, and you send it via Facebook Messenger to the awesome Facebook page. Rich will send you a Sam Star. You know what it is. And if you don't, you can ask on the Facebook page and find out. Or listen to all of our episodes again. You got time, right? All right. And speaking of time, it's time for the Scuttlebutt. Little random part of the show at the end here. And this time we got a doozy for you. We got an email at our old email that I won't mention. It's real easy to figure out, but I don't check it anymore. But Martin Gray doesn't care about that because he emailed us at that. And I still get the alerts, so fine. I check it out. I'm like, oh, what's Martin got here? And Sir Martin Gray, who I've been mentioning here, who runs the Too Dangerous for a Girl blog, which if you care about modern day DC comics at all, you don't got to go anywhere else. You go to his Too Dangerous for a Girl blog, and he is reading this stuff. He is current. He is opinionated. He is articulate, unlike me. And there's where you go. Martin Gray's Too Dangerous for a Girl blog. Well, this guy, this excellent chap from across the pond, he sent us an email, and it said, "Hi, lads. Just came across a 2-page Weird War style filler story and Secrets of Haunted House number 15, and it made me think of you." So we got a bonus story in Scuttlebutt here. And, since I sort of foisted it on Rich behind the scenes, I'm going to go ahead and just do an awkward job stumbling my way through it here. Again, it's a 2-pager. It's called An Eye for an Eye. Pencils by Tenny Henson. Inks, Fred Carrillo. Script, Bill Dennehy. Colors, Jerry Serp. That's Serpe. So An Eye for an Eye has a big old splash panel here. And you have the host for, what is this? The Secrets of the Haunted House, which I believe is Destiny. It's a purple hooded dude. You can't see his eyes under the purple hood. And I believe he is carrying the big old book of Destiny. And he's later roped into the Sandman family, I think, later on. He's up above in a column of smoke saying, "The British Spitfires slash through the night, knifing unerringly. Funny, I would stumble on that word, huh? Towards its dismal destination." And you have the plane flying towards the column of smoke here, and the pilot saying, "Think I've gone rather far enough. Now to bank and turn back, then drop old Desmond where he wanted. Right into the English Channel, where you wanted your ashes scattered." The narration panel follows. It says, "Poor chap, didn't realize the real reason I asked him to fly for me that dawn, when my own squadron had been ordered to bomb Berlin." And below that, he's thinking back to when his buddy, who's currently in the urn sitting next to him in the plane, was still alive, said, "I wouldn't ask you unless it was something terribly urgent, And his buddy Desmond says, "Forget it. Maybe you'll do a favor. Maybe you'll do me a favor someday. Come to think of it, there is one I want to ask right now. If I'm shot down, will you scatter my ashes over the channel?" And the next panel, you start the second page, and there's a woman in a car pulling up to the base, and she's saying to our buddy here, "What are you doing here? I expected Desmond. Can't you forget you're his girl just this once? I scrubbed myself from the mission just to be with you." So our buddy here is making time with Desmond's girl and sending him up in the plane on a mission so that he can sneak around behind his back and try to steal his girlfriend. And now, back to the present. We have our caption saying, "And now, he readied to dump Desmond to his eternal rest. He broke the urn's seal. Another second and I've fulfilled my debt to you, old boy. There are the white cliffs of Dover." And we got a panel here of him leaning his arm out of the cockpit with the open urn into the wind. And then the next panel, it says, "But caught in a maelstrom of a trick wind, something peppered the pilot's eyes. For the love of heaven, I can't see." And yeah, all of the ashes fly right back into this guy's face. And when he finally clears his eyes, he says, "Oh no, No! In that last moment before the fatal crash that splintered his plane like flimsy matchwood, he could hear a vengeful laugh. And this dude's plane flies straight into, like, I guess, a mountainside because the explosion's so huge you can't see. But there's mountains nearby and a ghostly image of Desmond standing nearby saying, "Cheerio, old blighter. I died for you. And now I even the score with my dust, so completely blinding you, as the saying goes, old boy, an eye for an eye, the end." So there we go. I like that. Martin stepping up for us, you know? What do you
Okay.
got to say?
Well, a couple of things, because I said a couple. It's literally a couple of things. An idea that I have for a future episode will be to do something like this. Would be to hop around, just the house mystery, GI combat, whatever, and just look for random weird war stories. Kind of like what we did for like visiting the next five and doing something like this. So it's something I'm looking at doing in the back half of the slate here. So, but good story. I like the story, but wouldn't be me, because Killjoy. He probably flew into the White Cliffs of Dover because he was talking about the White Cliffs of Dover. So he was blind. He probably just, into the
yeah.
cliffs.
Yeah, I did read that right in the dialogue, didn't I? I pay attention.
So there's that. But okay, they're not showing bombers. They're showing fighters. Okay. And one of the big problems with planes, with British fighter planes, was range issues. There was no freaking way a Spitfire was going to get to Berlin on twice the gas. And the other thing is, oh, by the way, how the hell did he get his ashes back if he got shot down over Berlin? But hey, Martin, love the story. Welcome to the show. This will be included in the album and everything else like that. But this is what I'm here for. I got to call him as I see him, or I can't see. To quote our favorite
Keith Giffen, rest in peace. Ambush Bug. Yes, I mean, I didn't really hang up on Rich. They're trying to set up an awful pun here. Will you get out of the way? It's a cause that I can get behind, okay? And an eye for an eye. Get it? Love it. I had a blast reading that. I had a blast discovering it. Thanks to Martin for sending it to us. And yeah, it's only 2 pages, so Rich will put the whole thing in the album for you guys in case I did what I assume is a terrible job narrating it for all of you. But just thank you again, Sir Martin of Gray, for thinking of us and sending us this probably riddled with flaws, but still super fun story. I didn't even think of that. How does he get the guy's ashes exactly? Didn't even occur to me. It's because I was having too much fun watching this guy get his just desserts. Because you get one little flashback panel of him hitting on the guy's girl, and like all that in 2 pages. The scripter here pulled off a pretty coherent narrative and made you really hate this dude in a handful of panels. So I had a good time. So there we go. That's the scuttlebutt. Another giving soul, Martin Gray, thinking of us and giving us free content to use. Preceding yet another giving soul, my co-host Rich, who you just heard from, tearing apart that story that Martin so graciously gave to us. But Rich is here to give you a teaser for our next episode.
Weird War Tales number 59. A true story. A classic feature returns. 4 hellos and 4 goodbyes. And one of those farewells is a sad parting to an undeniable legend in the field. Who is it? As if I'm going to tell you. Be here next time.
Man, I'm intrigued. And also, be here next time to find out. Will I read the hostess ad? Probably. We did so much work setting it up this time, I kind of have to. All right, so find out the answers to all that and probably more next time on the show. And what show is that? Well, it's a show hosted by us 2 guys. And who are we? We're the Batlin Bros. We're the Weird Warriors. This is the Weird Warriors podcast, where we promise to make war
No more.